Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
No.
Now you're probably hearing me. All right. Thanks everybody for coming. Since this is a meeting with the board and the full board here, we just have to call roll and then I'll make a few intro comments and we'll kick off. So.
All right. Magnus.
Here.
Turner.
Here.
Bouquet.
Here.
Fieri Rios.
Here.
Hempling.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. All right, well, I want to start off by thanking everybody for coming. I greatly appreciate it. It's good to see most of the seats filled. Hopefully we'll have even more people and more engagement over the next two listening sessions as we have them. We want, and we're really hoping to get as much input as possible from the community, so I appreciate you taking the time tonight. There are snacks in the back, so maybe that's the most important part. Feel free to get up whenever you want to. We're going to do a quick presentation by Mark Richley, so everybody knows Mike, his brother. So Mark was kind enough to come tonight to be present. He's going to go over again some of the, the broad options that are in front of us. We still don't have costs necessarily finalized on here because we're waiting for those March numbers to update for construction. So we're narrowing in on that. We'll have them shortly. But overall tonight, we really want to talk about like the three broad buckets. And I know I've received some emails about the 8 options, and we really are trying to get to the bottom of every single possibility in what's going forward. The board will rapidly narrow this, and my hope is we have 2, maybe 3 at the most by April, and then even by the end of April, just down to 1 really. So it's closing up on us pretty quickly, but we really want your input to help us get down. Even if it's just in these broad areas of the renovation, the new build, and what's being called the hybrid plan. So again, I appreciate everybody coming. So I guess Mark first. Anything else, Dr. first?
Yes. So everybody should have a folder. If you didn't pick one up when you came in, please raise your hand and we'll get you one. So everything we're going to go over tonight, with the exception of the aerial shot of each facility, you have in your folder. So I do want to point out, Mark will not be going over this, but in your folder is a handout about terms that we may use, and sometimes we go fast and don't explain what acronyms mean or certain terms mean. So hopefully this will help you. And if you still don't understand and we've not done a clear enough job of explaining, please ask. So Mark's going to speak for about 25 minutes on these options, and then I'll explain what we're going to do next. But the goal of the entirety of tonight is really to get input, to capture that input, so that we can then use that input as we prepare for the next listening session and what's coming in the next few months.
Thank you, Terry. I'm going to start out with a quiz. So the term you may hear me say tonight is OFCC. And so if you look it up, it stands for the Ohio Facility Construction Commission. And they are a potential partner with you during this journey of whether to build or renovate your schools. Can everybody hear me okay? Sometimes I speak softly. So I'm Mark Richley. You probably have met my brother Mike. We're both architects with Richley Architects. So I just want to thank you for coming. You could be a million places, but we appreciate you being here tonight so we could talk about some options. And it's really going to be your decision on how you want to move forward. So there are basically 3 buckets. We're calling it bucket A, or option A. And what you'll see in the handout are plans of option A only. Option B and C are going to be just words where we'll describe it because we haven't really gone into the detail on those options. So if you will follow along in your packet, this is the blue, the sheet that you see first is the overall options, and it's very confusing, or it seems confusing, but hopefully we'll get through this. So, yes, so option A is your current configuration. We're here at Mills Lawn, and so it's a K6, so that doesn't change. And the middle school, high school on Enon Road stays the same as well. So option A is basically renovations and additions to your current facilities. So I'm going to flip through and show you a couple slides of the aerial. So this is your current configuration, current layout. And this is an aerial showing Mills Lawn, and it shows the additions. And it's always interesting to go back in time and think about when the first building was built. So 1952 was the first addition, or first building, which was in yellow. And then 1957, and then the last addition was in the year 2002. And at the middle school, high school, the yellow area, again, 1963. 1988 was the orange edition, which is the shoebox. And then 2002 was the last edition, the engineering lab. So that kind of gives you a flyover of your existing facilities. What I'd like to walk through is option A. And option A, this is the floor plan of our existing building. Really the big difference between A1 and A2 is how much we decide to do. So option A, this is just one thought, is the area in blue represents renovation. And the thinking is a secure vestibule where the primary entrance is, with the admin area. Also, we have an area in blue where the restrooms are located. And the area in yellow represents new build or square footage that we're considering adding. And the primary reason for this addition was to add a structure. The state was requiring that you have a storm shelter with any new projects. The law has changed as of January 1. It is no longer a requirement. So that was the primary thinking when we came up with this original concept of A1. The other area that's hard to tell is everything else is a light gray, and we're calling that a targeted system improvement. And that can be as much as we need to do. There's mechanical, electrical, plumbing updates that are needed. So that's primarily the efforts. So A1 is kind of just turning the dial a little bit as far as cost. And then A1 at the middle school, high school, again, the yellow represents a new addition, square footage that's being added. And again, primarily the reason was for a secure vestibule for drop-off. And then we also are showing what is it, a music room. And again, the design was for that to be a storm shelter, which is no longer a requirement. But that was kind of the thinking behind the new square footage that we're adding to your existing middle school, high school. We also show some area in blue, some select renovation areas. And then the rest of it is in gray, which is the targeted improvements. So again, this is A1, so it's a little work. And we're going to also look at an A2 option where we're just dialing up the amount of work that could be done. So you can see the area in blue, the secure vestibule, the restrooms, and all the other area in blue that represents potential new upgrades and finishes, as well as the addition got a little bit larger and also included improvements in addition to the kitchen area. So that is Mills Lawn, option A2. And if we go to the middle school, high school, you'll see another section of yellow, which represents 5 additional classrooms. And that is currently, there's a courtyard there, it's where the shoebox is. But thinking is that could simplify the quarter, the connection, and also the age of that addition. So this represents the demolition of the shoebox with this proposed addition. So that would be A2. So basically A1 and A2 are, again, renovations of your existing facility. No major changes. I'm going to go back to the original slide that shows the overall options. So option B, B1 would be of thinking, or it would be a new K-12 school. So there's a B1 and a B2. The new K-12 school would be on the other side, the middle school, high school site on Enon Road. The B2, the only difference between B1 and B2 is B2 would be renovations and additions to a brand new K-12 school. The value with a K-12 school is the state would partner with us, because once you have over 350 students in a building, they partner, and they would pay whatever the state share is, 27% of the cost of the project. So that is a plus. And again, we do not have drawings for Bs or Cs, but they're just ideas that we'd like to toss out for input. So the third bucket, we're calling it C. And C, the way I think of it is basically a configuration change. So we looked at the age of the grade levels at each school. So if you look at C1, we've changed it to a K4. And we have also shown a 5-12 at the middle school, high school. And you may ask, well, why did you do that? And the thinking, again, is if you have a grade configuration over 350 students, the state will participate in the cost of that project. So that allowed us to have the community to have the two sites, keep those, but also receive funding from the state for the 5-12. So hopefully that makes sense. So C1 would be a renovation, an addition to this school, and then a new, brand new 5-12 at the middle high school site. So that's C1. I know there's a lot of information coming, so I know it's hard to process. C2 would be a new K4 on this site, and also a new 5-12 at the middle school, high school site. So both new buildings. C3, we would renovate the K4, and we'd also renovate the 5-12. And then the last option, C4, would be just a new K4, and then the 5-12 would have the renovations, additions. And you'll see the LFI designation, and that stands for Locally Funded Initiative, which is what the state calls it, which means the community pays 100%. It's all locally funded. They don't participate in the LFI. So if you see where the size of the school, if we kept the K4 here, it would be undersized for them to participate, and that's why the community would pay the LFI. Does that make sense?
But it says OFCC under all the C options.
Yeah. OFCC, yes, it does say that. There are portions small portions that they could pay if there's some demo. But generally, the larger projects, they will fund their share. Let's see, all right, Judith.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, option A1 is basically the foundational plan. There was also a plan in between option 1, A1 and A2, which we dubbed the Foundational Plus plan, which there was no drawings of, but it included replacing the shoebox with new classrooms. Yeah, go to that drawing.
Do you want to?
Yeah, so in the high school, it was, the new classrooms were added, the modulars were demolished, the band room was demolished, and the new construction is in the front. And then we added in, the plus part was that rather than deep renovation of the older sections of the building, there would be not only the mechanical systems, et cetera, but also finishings, floors, because we were thinking about the rooms. Okay, we know there's going to be new ceilings with new lighting, but what about the floors? What about the furniture, which is quite old in some parts of the building? And then the finishings, which were going to be a little more limited than a deep renovation. There wasn't going to be any reconfiguration, but, so that was sort of a middle plan in between there. And then I was going to just say on the C plans, that the word hybrid has been used to describe that. So if you're wondering, where did the hybrid go where you're looking at this, or where did the foundational plus go? Anyway, I just wanted to, I don't know if that's at all clarifying, but people have been hearing them called that, and so this doesn't reference that at all.
And could I just clarify for that question? Just wanted to respond to that question. The C's, thank you, Mark. The C plans have OFCC ELP underneath them because in the C options, the 5 through 12 grades would bring in enough students, right, to meet that 350 student or above threshold for the state to provide that 27% of their funding contribution. So that's why C's have OFCC, and the LFI is on the K4 portion, which would be what remains at Mills Lawn, which would be less than 350 students. I just wanted to, is that clarifying?
That's correct. There are also some academic advantages to that configuration.
There are also some academic advantages to that configuration, and maybe we can answer more questions about that later this evening.
Allowed to ask questions?
Should we open up Q&A?
Yeah, can we get the lights? So I'm gonna defer to the board president. I think questions are fine now and or later. Let me just explain to you what we're asking you to do. And then if you have questions to help you do that, now would be the best time to ask. So actually, we're going to do one more thing, and I don't know that we need the lights out. So in your folder, you have these 3 posters. It says A, B, and C. Looks like this, right? So I'm going to tell you, it was difficult. Do we talk about 8 plans, or do we talk about 3 options? Because both are true. So, Mark went through the 8, but what we'd like you to do is weigh in on the 3 broad categories. And so each of these posters concisely says exactly what he just did as he went through all 8 options. So you can see that A would be those renovation options that keep the same grade configuration that we currently have, and all of A is locally funded. Whatever that cost is, however little renovation we do, or however extensive the renovation we do. That's A. B is a different category. B is, as Mark said, a K-12 configuration. It could be a new building, or it could be what's called a demo reno add, which means part of the current building would be kept, part would be demolished, and a new part would be added. So the B options are eligible for the OFCC ELP credit of 27%. For C, and I apologize because I know it's confusing, But I wanted to make sure we put every option up here so there was no confusion that we were holding anything back. You have to decide which of these are good options and which of these are not good options. But all of C, the 512 portion, is eligible for a OFCC credit. The K4 portion is not, except perhaps for some abatement, right? If we had to do some abatement. Even though it says K4, I want to address pre-K because that has come up in some of our meetings. So in those options, we certainly could investigate a pre-K at this site. So we've had preliminary discussions about that. I didn't put it up here because, or Mike didn't put it up here because we're trying to keep this as simple as possible when we know none of it is simple. So here's the ask, and maybe it will get us up and moving. So you see right here, this poster, option A. And then you see option B, Vanna White is, and you see option C. And next to each is a sheet that says I like and I wonder. This is an activity we do with our students called Critical Friends Protocol. So on the tables in the back are lots of Post-its, markers. We want you to take some time, and we have time designated for this, to think about these, and based upon what you know now, the I likes are easy, right? Okay, I like this, I like this. The blue, and those would be on green Post-its, the blue is I wonder. Those are your questions. Those are all of your questions, and maybe one of your questions is, how can I make a decision based on this? We want to hear from you. This is designed to be anonymous. There is no requirement or even suggestion that you put your name. But as we give you time to do this, as in the Critical Friends Protocol, then what the board and I can see, and the rest of the district team, as well as Ridgely architects, can see, okay, here are where people have the greatest questions. Here is maybe the umbrella, the option umbrella, that is gaining some traction. Once you do that, I've asked TJ to ask board members and maybe with a partner just to report out. The reporting out is not saying Lisa Abel said this. The reporting out is for those who watch the video at home so that they can see, okay, here's what everyone wrote. Here is the sense that came out of this meeting. That will help us take this, make it electronic some way so that folks who could not be here tonight may be able to weigh in. And more importantly, it will give direction to the board about where to go next. After that, we can then have a Q&A, or you can ask questions now to help you do I likes and I wonders. That's really up to you. And you need to get some refreshments.
Just before we get into the I like and I wonder, she mentioned the digitizing of it, so I am going to ask that everyone use their best penmanship, because it will be my duty to decipher these and to turn them into electronic messages. So personally, I have portable chicken scratch, and I know how hard it can be to write legibly, but write as legible as possible. Your names are not going to be attached unless you write your name at the bottom. But otherwise, I just need to be able to read it. That's all. So thank you.
Thanks. I have two questions about the LFI. So for option B, it's true that there are no LFIs involved in that, or would you have to do an LFI to get it back to the same square footage that we have now? That was question one. I can answer the second one. And then that we would finance, so it's not a separate fundraising effort.
The answer to the second one, it would be a part of the campaign. And to answer the first one, typically the state funds what they call baseline, and it would be up to you if you wanted to add any, what they would consider not baseline. So it would be like sports or an auditorium, things like that.
But that would be an LFI.
Those would be an LFI if the community decided they wanted that.
Hi, I'm confused about how to do a meaningful comparison without cost. It seems like the cost to the community is a huge piece of this decision. So are we doing this again with cost later on, or how do we do this?
The answer, I agree, yes.
Okay.
Hopefully we communicated that at least you know which schemes the state's helping with or helping participate in. But I agree, it's if you're looking at dollars and cents, we don't have that comparison today. But that will happen at our next meeting.
Is A1 then the foundation? Oh, the foundational plan, A1? Because it is? Not
Yes.
the
The
foundational
drawings
cost.
show the foundational plan.
Yes.
Well, we had numbers on that, it was about 25 million.
I can address this. We are trying deliberately to not have dollars tonight for two reasons. One is that we are trying to really separate our discussion about facilities from discussions about money. That may not make sense to you. To be quite honest, it does not make sense to me, but that is the law that we currently have to abide by. So, we are gonna talk about money, and that is in April. So that's piece one. So, I think there is value in looking at options just without dollars, because what you might say is, yes, I like this, but once I know how much this costs, I realize maybe I don't like it as much as I did. The second piece is, for options B and C, we do not have what the OFCC calls a cost set. So a cost set is based upon the current industry numbers about what construction costs exist. That's how they give us our total amount. So I can tell you in 2021, B1 was $35 million. So when they give us B1, or quite honestly, C1 for the 512, they're going to give us a number, right? That would be the total project number, and then we would apply the 27% credit against that. They do not have the 2023 cost sets yet. So this was a very deliberate conversation. And I just want, you may not agree, but I want you to understand why. I could have given you 2022 cost sets, and if you've been at any facilities meetings, Mike actually did that. And we actually attached that document to the agenda. The 2023 cost sets are coming at the end of March. And so, if I put the 2022 cost sets out here, no matter what I say, it opens up the door for folks to say, well, that's not what you said at that February 21 meeting. Now it's the March meeting, and Terry, you're just, telling us something different again. This is a very complicated process. So it was a deliberate decision that we made, talking to our architectural consultant as well as the board president, and that's it. If you look, if you want, I can tell you where Mike put, what board meeting, what facilities meeting it was on. It was a document where he presented different cost set scenarios, but even he said, proceed with caution, because I'm just guessing about these. Or do we want to do a project with some reimbursement? Do we want to keep our grade configuration, or do we want something different? I mean, those are things I really think we can dig into tonight without numbers. I will tell you, you're right, we do have cost sets, Kathy Adams, for A1, and it's about 25 million, 29 million, roughly in that area. And A2, which would be kind of the maximum on our whole renovation plan, is about 50 million. So anywhere you see renovation, particularly at Mills Lawn and in the A's and in the C's at Mills Lawn, you're talking about we can do a little renovation or we can do a full renovation. And the reason for that is because we're paying for all of that ourselves. If you see a renovation for 512, that is going to be dictated by the program of requirements in the Ohio School Design Manual that the OFCC uses. Does that make sense?
I actually do have a question myself.
From what I understand, these cost sets are very focused around the amount of square footage that we're looking at for each one of these options. And there's a potential with especially B2 and B3 that may be, the most square footage that we'd be looking at. But I mean, there's a potential for that. So I don't know, it would be probably helpful, I know, to the board and to the population for us to, because I know that there's going to be adjustments by the end of March, considering the January change in the law, the change for the requirement for the shelter. On where we do have cost estimates is that square footage will probably change to some degree because of the removal of that requirement.
So what the OFCC does, you're right to a degree. So what they do, Amy, is they cost out each student. You get a square footage amount per student. So they do enrollment projections. That gives your total projected enrollment. They multiply that by the square footage allowance for each student, and then that's how you get your total square footage allowance. The cost sets are really kind of what the industry is seeing in terms of real cost around construction.
Well, so let me just clarify one more.
So in some of these options, like option B, the B1 is likely our leanest square footage, right? And assuming that there's no LFI, locally funded initiative, that adds square footage to that. I would suspect like C3 has the potential of being the most square footage, but we want to control that because we need to control cost. So, but there's a trade-off between, I would say, what educational requirements can be met based on that square footage, and that's something that you are going to work through with the principals. So we'll be very interested in that.
I'd love to hear more questions from you all who are here, because I know it is confusing and we've been reviewing it quite a bit as a board. I just want to say one other thing. As we're interjecting other variables like square footage, etc., it becomes complex because when you have two campuses, right, you have two kitchens, for example, the space that we're in now, which is both the gymnasium and where the students eat their lunches, right? So when you're looking at square footage and you're looking at two campuses versus one campus, it starts to get complex. So I just want to encourage us tonight, answer you all's question, but also I haven't found a square footage conversation to be helpful by itself without understanding how many buildings and campuses are we talking about, because one of the reasons why that's a leaner option in the B
is that it's combining everybody into one building, so you would have just one set of kitchens, one set of a library, etc. So it's not exactly apples to oranges, and that's, again, I'm sorry, it makes it more complicated. But I just want to clarify that because sometimes the square footage can kind of overlook that piece. There were a couple of hands up right here.
I know there's some rules on what you can say would happen to this site if you were to consolidate into the high school site. Could you just sort of reiterate what you're allowed to say about potentially what could happen at this site? How much you can say or not say?
Yeah,
I don't know that there are rules about what we can say or not say about that. There is a law that we have to follow if we want to sell a property. That's it. And that's really a board decision, what they might want to do with this property. I don't think that answers your question.
If you want to sell it, there's a law in how you sell it.
Correct.
But that it assumes that the board would choose to sell it.
The board may not choose to sell it. Correct. The board has a lot of options with that.
So there's some restrictions on the process that you have to follow to divest of property. Now, if you have a piece of property that is vacant, which if we had built a K-12 at the other property, this would become vacant. There are some laws around vacant property. After you have a vacant property for a certain number of years, you do have to divest of it to the best of your ability. Now, how you go about divesting of that property is up to the board. There's a process for going through sales, but there is not. I know a lot of times in school construction, you'll see lowest and best bid, and that that means you have to go with the best bid, not necessarily lowest and best. Same with the sale of property. It is not that you have to take the best bid. You have to take the highest bidder no matter what. So there is a lot of options in divesting of property. There's just guidelines that you do have to follow. And then again, as far as if you have a vacant property, after a certain number of years, districts are responsible to divest of vacant properties.
There's another question on that.
2 or 3 weeks ago in the Yellow Springs News, it was said that the treasurer said that the reimbursement, the 27%, is actually, doesn't seem like it's gonna be reimbursed to us, the taxpayers, that we have to actually pay for the full bond, for the full amount, and that then it's up to the, I guess, school board, I'm assuming, to, once that reimbursement occurs, so like 2 years down the road, like what they will do with it. So actually, we as taxpayers will not see that 27% benefit. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. So the ELP program, which is the one we are eligible for, is indeed exactly what you said. The community has to approve 100% of the project. After we close out the project, X number of years after that, we get the reimbursement. When I say we, the Board of Education gets the reimbursement. At that point, they have options. Working with the auditor, they could reduce the millage, correct? So you do see the benefit. It's just not immediate, and it is, you're exactly right, the taxpayers have to approve 100% of the project. Why is that? In your terms, there are 2 programs that the state runs. One is the ELP program, which is what we are eligible for. The other is called CFAP, which is the Classroom Assistance Project. All of this is based upon your per pupil valuation. The state has an eligibility list, that is also in the definition. So they take the per pupil valuation for every district and they rank order districts. So those with higher per pupil valuations are at the bottom of the eligibility list. If you're at the top, you qualify for CFAP. And so when you qualify for CFAP, you get your state credit right away. So think about big urbans or the districts in southeast Ohio that have been, they're just very poor. We are near the bottom of the list. So out of 600 and something, we're in the 400s. So what the state has said, hey, all of you districts who aren't at the top, we don't expect you to wait generations. You can begin participating by participating in the ELP program, which means you don't get your credit right away, but you do get your credit. Does that make sense?
I can maybe clarify that point even more. If I can say something and then there's some questions. I think that the way that it was reported made it sound like anything could be done with that money. I can't speak on behalf of the board, and obviously that will be a conversation for the board at that time, but the options are to use the money to directly pay down, or change the millage, or directly pay back into the project itself. It would, I think that we need to be a little bit clearer, because it doesn't sound as clear that the state reimbursement would be coming back to the board to be used towards the district and our overall facilities plan that had been in consultation and by approval by the state, by the OFCC. And so that there are some options with that, but my understanding would be that that is the primary use of this reimbursement of the states. It's used to bring back that money towards the overall project, the community. Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, my concern is you used the word could. This should get some kind of writing or whatever. I mean, we're going out on faith, and that money needs to come back and pay down instead of going to whatever, decision. I'm really worried because not only of my concerns are for the students, my also concerns are for the people that live in the community that are struggling.
I said could because it's not my decision. It's the decision of the Board of Education.
It won't even be us necessarily, right? And that's part
I
of-
understand
Yeah,
that.
so I can make any promises I want right now.
But
That
could.
genuine? No, right?
There could be verbiage put in there stating that money would go back in there.
I mean, I guess we could say something like that, but there's nothing that's binding a board down the road from doing that. They could say, that's nice, TJ. Haha, this is what we're really doing. I guess.
Then
So,
you didn't
if that makes
say
sense.
that you will get the money when he needs nothing to.
Well, I guess.
Pay back.
It comes back to the district though, right? And it would be an operations
It comes to the board, and this is, it's easy for us to go down this path that's gonna get us off track. I understand what you're saying. I guess what I would say is, I would hope that any future board would want to do this because it is a good thing for a board to be able to do. I mean, to say, hey, residents, taxpayers, look at what we're able to do to help you pay down this millage or bond debt, right? Again.
Yeah, you get the 27% credit.
Right.
It is very difficult to say what would be happening in 7, 8, 10 years from now. And there's also, keep going. That's a far time from when you have borrowed. And I'm sure many of you who have borrowed money for a house on a 30-year loan have taken the opportunity to possibly refinance down the road and lower your debt payments. School districts do the same thing with borrowed money. We refinance. We refinanced bonds a couple years ago for the 2002 portion. Refinances, there's costs with refinancing, just like refinancing your home. So there's some expenses with that. But the savings of refinancing is given back to taxpayers. So that's done on regular bonds. So it is very difficult for me to say what exactly is going to happen. Again, 7, 8 years down the road. But the money will be coming back to the district and be for the benefit of the taxpayers.
That's very, you're saying it's coming back to the district.
It is coming back to the district.
But not necessarily back to pay it off. You could use it for something else.
It could be used to
So that
pay down a portion, it could be used to refinance. It's very difficult for me to say exactly how it will be used down the road, but it will definitely be coming back to the district.
I'm not trying to be difficult, but
Yeah,
the way
no,
the way you're selling it is, we could do this, but that's not necessarily true. The way
Yeah, I guess I just want to be totally upfront and honest that we can't make a promise for what that board. Now, maybe some of us would still be on the board, or not, but or some of you might be on the board and choose to run and take over. So and make that happen. I mean, even if it comes back and goes into your operating budget, you may then not have to have an operating levy that comes down. So the taxpayers are always going to see the benefit. If it goes right into this particular bond issue, would be what that board at the time would have to decide. Yeah.
But we fund it all with the interest until UFCC does that reimbursement. And I had heard 2 years from you, Jacob, and then
From the
now-
close of the project.
Okay.
So we're not even,
Now it's 5 to 8. and
well,
before
you're talking
last
about,
week it was 10.
It was 8 to 10, but the OFCC has made a commitment to districts to try to accelerate that payoff, because they don't want to have these outstanding projects.
yeah, and I'm talking about 8 to 10 years from now because I'm talking about passage, planning, building, finishing,
2 years.
reconciling,
Yep.
which is a process as well. And then after the reconciliation is when that real clock starts. This is how much money the state is going to pay us back. And, they'll tell us how long they estimate that we'll have to wait. But it is quite a long time from the passage to the start of the project, the end of the project, and then the reconciliation process. So it's not like we get the money and the buildings are built within a year. It is quite the process, so.
I would like to get back to the purpose of the meeting, which is to talk about the values of the different configurations that may happen. I personally am enamored of pre-K through 4. I think this would be an absolutely fantastic building for that, and I would like to hear from whoever said there could be some advantages in that situation.
Thank you, ma'am. I mean, it sounds like a great segue. I mean, if there's other questions, we can take them. But my hope also tonight is that we look at these 3 broad buckets, even though there's not costs yet associated with all of them. There are some good things I think that can come out of this that can help steer the board to help narrow this down. So maybe then we're at 8 options in 3 different broad bins. Maybe we get down to 3 and 2 bins in March, and then April we're down to just the one that really makes a lot of sense for all the community values and the inputs that we're hearing. Because how we got to hybrid was just a few of us getting inputs, right, from you, from emails and things. And so we want to open that aperture up as wide as we can to the community to hear from all of you, and over the next 2 listening sessions too, to help us make this narrow down. And that's really what the hope is tonight. Do you want to say something, or?
I was going to suggest at some point soon, can we just stop and kind of put our thoughts on the wall and then up with questions because reading in the report out, we may see questions that we can then answer. So at some point in the next few minutes.
All right, I'll let Jerry go. He had his hand up, and then we'll transition to another.
Yeah, it should be noted that when the OFCC numbers come out in the spring, that's going to be for a build in 2023. Our build is down the road a couple of years, so those numbers are going to have to be adjusted. Currently, we're talking about something in the range of $450 a square foot as a projected number for new construction. We'll see what happens when the OSCC numbers come out. Number two is we've had a lot of deferred maintenance over the years, so I think it would be good for the public to understand how ongoing maintenance for any facilities going forward are going to be funded. I think that needs to be part of the discussion so people understand that we're not going to end up in the situation that we are now. And number two, I think there needs to be some, or number three, there needs to be some discussion about what the public feels about storm shelter options. As Mark said, the law has been rescinded, so there is not a requirement to have a storm shelter in the schools. The other end of the issue is having what's referred to as a Category 5 storm shelter, which will withstand a 250-mile-an-hour wind like is exhibited or experienced on the East Coast. And you have to have restrooms, alternate power supplies, the whole bit. That can add anywhere from $1 million to $1.5 million to the cost of construction for the requirements for the number of students that we have. So I think all those things need to be part of the discussion.
Thanks, Jerry. I mean, that's another great thing to come away with tonight, right? I mean, sorry, I wonder. Keep this section on.
I was gonna say, to not have a storm shelter does not mean there isn't a plan for when there's a storm that, a building needs to, a school needs to meet. Is that not correct, Mark? So, it gives you more flexibility not to have the state dictating exactly how it has to be, but it doesn't mean there wouldn't be a safe place for people to go in the event of a storm.
That's right. I would say you also would have the option to strengthen a particular room so it could withstand the wind, but maybe not have all the HVAC and the restrooms and other amenities that the state requires. So you could do potentially a hybrid if you decide that was important.
Okay.
Would this be a good time to
Yeah,
break?
It's a good time. So get some paper and marker, and you can sit back there and write if it's easier to write on a table, and then post your comments. That would be very helpful to us. Thank you. And then take some time, and then we'll come back as a whole group again.
All right, everybody, we're going to start reading off, and all we're going to do is just read through all the comments. I'll have one person in A, Dorothy's going to do A, I'll read off all the comments under B, and then Amy's going to read off all the comments under C. It's just so that everybody can hear the community input that was put out there, so you can walk away with, hearing all the comments. Challenged. So we'll do another second here. Yeah.
All right, option A, I like. Knowing what a floor plan would likely look like is a very important factor to me. I like increasing support from voters who will vote yes only if Mills Lawn continue to be used as a school by the district. I like option A1 because I think it stands the best chance of passing if the levy is placed on the ballot. I like that options A1, A2, and C3 all fully utilize both the 2002 Mills Lawn and 2002 YS High School editions. It is probably the cheapest options, allowing people of lower means to stay in town. It is great to have an elementary school downtown. That was part of the second comment. Would preserve Mills Lawn as community space, which is important to villagers. I like Mills Lawn staging in the center, or staying in the center of our village. Keeping Mills Lawn. Updated security at front of buildings. For Plan A, if most economical, this might have the best chance of passing. Option A should only be considered with an educational, not just mechanical system update. I like seeing the kids play outdoors when I'm downtown. I think this is the best for, I don't know what. I think this is the best. Prefer 2 campuses because I believe that's better for young children. 2 campuses. A separate elementary campus celebrates and recognizes elementary needs and activities and accomplishments in a way a K-12 can't. Middle of village, Mills Lawn is walkable for many of students close to downtown and is close to the Glen. Mills Lawn has an incomparable outdoor area for learning and playing. Detail for option C. I still like the Foundational Plus plan the most. Sustainability focus of renovation. I like the idea of a school in the center of town. I like preserving Mills Lawn and rehabbing it for comfort, safety, educational value. So that was the I like of option A. Now I'm going to move on to the I wonder. Can renovations be good enough aesthetically and productively for the future potential new families to Yellow Springs? Can the school board unify if this option is off the table? How will we ever fully address the lack of inclusiveness and accessibility with the foundational plan? Have students been consulted in the foundational plan? What does this plan do to improve the learning environment? I wonder if this is a responsible use of taxpayer funds since we get no OFCC kickback. This one is an I like, so I'm going to move it just back there. Follow me with that. I like the idea of choosing an option that attaches to a dollar amount the community can accept and vote for. Maybe that's this one, I don't know. Okay, going back to the I wonder. How does the school board determine the dollar amount that the community will pass? Detail for option B and C. I wonder how this impacts our students and teachers during renovations. I already read it, so we're good. I wonder how this gives our kids the access all of our students Greene County have unless we do deep renovations. I wonder if school board recognizes how unique a setting Mills Lawn has in this age, and how many towns wish they hadn't lost what we still have, due for option C. I wonder, my concern is that repairs made will last, but for how many years? Is that the best use of our taxes? I could like a 6 to 12 plan, not a 5 to 12 plan. Depending on the cost, it would need to balance out. Why the community wants to pay an additional 27%? Will we still have the benefit of the experience of building professionals who were on the facilities committee in this plan? I wonder how safe it is to have our kids on Mills Lawn with the lack of a safe buffer. I wonder if renovation at a minimal level is the best use of our community's money. If minimal reno reflects a sincere investment in our schools, what costs will be involved with maintaining older buildings in, say, 20 years? What costs are involved during renovations regarding students' placement and transportation? I wonder how to improve understanding of the needs beyond foundational plan. There needs to be more clarity on educational needs. What distress the students could be in during transition or displacement time during renovation. Where would the teachers and students go during renovations? Okay. I wonder if doing the minimum is enough to continue to recruit teachers and families and community members. What space would be used during renovations for learning? Have this cost been added to the renovation costs? The day-to-day impact and cost moving our students around during renovations. And the last one is, can renovation or new build include convert gas to electric heat pumps, comfort control humidity, dehumidify temperature fresh air, and heat pump water heaters? So those are all the I wonders for the option A.
All right, I'll do option B. All right, so let's start with the I like. I like the cost savings realized by centralizing kitchens, gyms, and administrative space. I like sharing the cafe, the library, transportation, and many other resources/expenses. Vertical curriculum planning in one building, accelerated options for gifted students, and the 27% credit, and then there's a note down here that says me too. A new facility would be for our village and the economical impact selling of Mills Lawn space. Cool options really could have overall. I do not really like anything about this plan. If managed correctly, a K-12 or a pre-K-12 school offers some great possibilities for educational experiences that are not possible in more traditional configurations. I like that. How will renovation work impact daily operations of the school, noise, dust, areas closed due to construction? This is B2 specifically for there. As a fairly new resident, I see the advantages of having a single campus, but I recognize that residents are very protective of Mills Lawn. The many advantages of one campus. I like the efficiency of this plan. I like that this plan is eligible for co-funding. I like the idea of only maintaining one building. I like that option B is comprehensive and will alleviate the need for future levy requests. I also like that it leverages the most state dollars. I like the efficiency that a single campus offers. I like the prospect of providing a vision for the Mills Lawn side that might be exciting for the community. I like benefiting from help from the state, even if delayed, the opportunity to maintain one campus instead of two. I like the K-12 option educationally and emotionally, and I like the safety of gathering kids together. I like the new K-12 plan. It will be the most efficient to have all services and resources in one location. It also sounds like there are many academic, social, and emotional benefits to both our students and teachers in having a single campus. This one says efficiency of one campus for a small town, and I like the affordability. In the I wonder side, I wonder if the Antioch University building could be an asset for the schools. Is it really worth stirring up the Save Mills Land campaign and dividing the community again? I wonder if we have enough voters to support the K-12 option, if we'll like what happens to Mills Lawn. What LFIs will be needed? I wonder how much we are willing to pay to continue to operate two separate schools. It is not certain what will happen with the reimbursed money from OFCC. I wonder about having broad community discussions to reimagine the Mills Lawn property without a school building on it. The only suitable buyer for the Mills Lawn property is for the YS Green space. I wonder if the space will actually allow for theater, band, etc. space. OFCC has not funded this in other places, i.e. Overland. I wonder, a K-12 building may be smallest, but it is mixing a wide disparity of emotional, social, and educational student needs together. Can Mills Lawn be released for non-educational purposes and still be owned by the schools? I wonder how much clarity could be provided about the potential uses or plans for Mills Lawn site. I wonder about including adequate square footage for the district administration offices in one of the plans so we don't have to keep paying rent for their workspace. I like the opportunity to improve safety at the drop-off and pickup. I guess I'll do like a Dorothy, this is what I like. I'll stick it over here. I wonder why we haven't done K-12 together before now. I wonder why we don't have a cost for this. Put all kids K-12 in one facility with one kitchen, one auditorium, etc. makes huge sense to me, equals effective use of money. Efficient use of Earth's resources means renovate and upgrade, not throw out old and make a new one. Specifically, this is the B2. I wonder if the K-12 can be at the Mills Lawn site. We know Mills Lawn is a cause of great anxiety for many villagers. Moving the K-12 to Mills Lawn, all wishes this pain point. Sorry, I can't quite read that one. How do you know you can fill up the classrooms we currently have into one building given the OFCC regulations? What compromises will be needed? Shared classrooms, single cafeteria, etc. How would only one kitchen work for all students in one building? It's already a zoo with 2 kitchens. Would there be 2 gyms? Gym space for classes, practices is hard to combine now with two gyms. I wonder, are there pre-K options anywhere in this plan? What will become of Mills Lawn, our village's Central Park, question mark, sold to commercial or the highest bidder? And will this plan include consideration to the learning environment and student experience? I wonder if the board could supply data analysis of behavioral bullying issues at K-12 campuses versus divided campuses, lower/higher grades. And that is all in option B. Option C.
Thank you, TJ. All right. So this is option C, which again is not the hybrid plan, but it's kind of like a new one. Okay, I like that C. This option seems to have the best chance to get the 1/3 of people who haven't already decided. Creative way to be eligible for some state funding. I like that this would minimize any need for an addition at Mills Lawn School. I like now 5 through 12 and renovation of Mills Lawn School. With a project of this size, B or C, sure seems like we should get 27%. I like that this would allow for a pre-K option and for the Board of Education to return to district property. Oh, okay, so the Board of Election offices to return. Okay, sorry, just needed to do a clarity on that. This option keeps both campuses. I like there will be many opportunities and flexibility in how Mills Lawn can be fixed. A new 5 through 12 building area makes the most sense. Many educational needs met. Specifies skill sets, labs, etc. I like the addition of preschool. I like this option. I like everyone in the school community and beyond would benefit. I like the environment of a new build would inspire. I like integrating a preschool Integrating a preschool is a great idea. C3 solves a number of issues at midpoint cost, a preschool program. The pre-K option, exclamation point, vital and important to village growth. I like new options allow for a starting point for future sustainability of the school facilities. 1950s buildings can only be nursed along for so long. I like the potential of adding pre-K. I like 6th grade with middle school. I like 27% credit for the 5th through 12th. I like that there is separation between younger and higher grades. Pre-K at Mills Lawn, exclamation point. I like splitting K through 4 and 5 through 12. We get sustainable state funding. We get substantial state funding. Community retains centrally located Mills Lawn School. Could be a compromise option depending on cost. Prefer 2 campuses because better for younger children. I like the idea of a pre-K through 4 can meet many individual and group educational needs. It would be a safe space, a safe place, and a nurturing place. The surrounding area is walkable and neighborly. Responsive to community fiscal concerns by taking advantage of the 20% benefit. Locally funded initiatives allows community to decide how much they are willing to invest. I like pre-K through 4 ideas so that younger students can be in their own environment. I like 1 K through 12 building at Enon Road site. Best option, honors the community's wish to maintain Mills Lawn as a school, provides the 350 student population quota for 27% state reimbursement, allows more space to add pre-K. I like the idea of offering pre-K and making use of space to offer K through 4 and 5 through 12. I like the idea that both locations are preserved. I like the flexibility, I like the flexible thinking of the board to explore this option. I like the idea of getting rid of the shoebox and putting something sturdier and more permanent in its place. I also am very supportive of more secure entrances. I would like there to be a very strong storm shelter. I like that this would allow structures on both campuses. I like that C1 and C3 would allow the current 7 through 12 building to serve as a swing space while Mills Lawn is renovated. I like that a pre-K could be included in this option. I like showing earnest support for our schools by listening to what they need. I like C1 best, C3 next. I like that options A1, A2, and C3 all fully utilize the 2002 additions at both the high school and the elementary school. And that's getting us through option C. I like. So now let's go to I wonder. Okay, and thank you, Leslie, for organizing this for me. I appreciate it. I wonder, what is approximate cost to do nothing compared to cheapest option / plans? What is rough estimate of each option, even if it is ABC is less than B is less than C? This would be useful. So some sort of rank order. What is most expensive option? Is it substantially more than the next most expensive one? How does cost of doing nothing compare to most expensive option? So again, like an A versus B comparison, what's the relation? I need to, there's something else written. A rough quantification, what they want is a rough quantification, not just a relationship of A is greater than B or less than B. I would like to know how flexible this option could be in long run. Could you shift the 5 classroom back to Mills Lawn if needed? What is the educational, not financial benefit of a 5 through 12 building? What will be the answer to the ongoing community concerns around A and B? I wonder about the cost of C1, C3, the 2 I like best. Wondering what other income sources are available to bring the cost down to about $5 million. I wonder how this is affordable to a large number of people in the village. How do you go from no on 18 million and no on 35 million and expect a yes on an even larger amount? I wonder, how the projects could be implemented to decrease the disruption to learning. Can Mills Lawn and high school both get full kitchens? Is it uncertain what will happen? It is uncertain what will happen with the reimbursement from the OFCC. I wonder whether 5 through 12 is too wide of age range to put together for educational strategies. I read that one. I wonder when my kids were in 6th grade, I was so happy there was still at Mills Lawn. Middle school is very awkward. Drugs are present. How would 5th and 6th graders fare? If there's some creative thinking that would be done to give folks assurance of how the 27% will be handled to the benefit of the taxpayer. I wonder how to afford a theater space. I really want this. I know it has to be an L5 basically. Okay. Eliminates distraction of the future of Mills Lawn in the levy process. What are the advantages of K through 4? How much space would be made available and could it be used? Where would kids meet during new building construction? I wonder about funding a pre-K program. How realistic a possibility is this? We already have pre-K in this community at the Yellow Springs Community Children's Center. I wonder, how do we include a capital campaign to help defray the total cost? I would like to know the incremental cost of the pre-K aspects. I wonder what the cost is to the community. How could we work to help the community understand just how valuable is to meeting educational needs, behavior, attendance, social and emotional needs, and academics? I would like to understand the priorities of renovation options. Okay. I'll read that again. I would like to understand the priorities of renovation options. I wonder which option will be most sustainable for the environment, thinking of the future of our students and children. How would space in high school split between grade levels? Control over interaction. A1, A2, and C3 are good. What's the rest? What are the end estimated class sizes? If we can afford I wonder if we can afford a new preschool program. Building new is not efficient use of taxpayer dollars and is hugely wasteful of the Earth's resources, more efficient to renovate. Can Mills Lawn house Children's Center in full? I wonder if the community will vote for this or if they will say it's too expensive and then the schools get another failed levy. Did I read that one? Yes. How realistic to campuses? How realistic to campus maintenance upkeep will be over more time? I would like to know about other districts that have used their type of plan, this type of plan. I wonder if we are doing the best we can for our kids on this one. All right, and that includes our I like and I wonder.
Thank you, everybody. I mean, there's a lot of input here, right? Even without having the cost sets, there's a lot of things that I haven't heard before, so that helps me. And we are going to be digitizing this, and we'll have it available so folks who weren't here can see it. And if you watch it later online, you will be able to come back and take a look too, or through everything we've done. Yeah, we still have some time. Do a few questions. I'm seeing hands up. I promise.
Here's an idea. I mean, you could just have people come up to the mic.
Yeah.
And then we can pass the mic around here.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I wasn't clear what the format was going to be.
Turn it on.
I got you. Oh, that's a good start. Hello. 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 No.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. All right. I wasn't clear on, what the format was going to be. I made myself some notes that don't quite fit in to how this laid out. But it had to do with kind of what I'll call an overarching thought on the process. And it's all based on, there's a lot of interesting options on the table now. 8, there might be more, but every one of them, even the least expensive one, is like still really expensive for what we've been used to. I've lived here since the 1980s, and even the least expensive option would be the most expensive civic project that's occurred here, and that's substantial. Okay, so with that as background, the process that's been going on, this facilities group, there's 2 groups of experts involved. There's a set of people who have background with expertise in operations, facilities, and construction. Okay, there's also the group that are educators and have the expertise in educational approaches and all that stuff. So it strikes me that if we're going to spend a bundle of money on something, what's critical is that we really set the bar high on all the educational needs, that the educators that are involved in that process, they're all completely on board with whatever options that are being considered. Because if we're going to, what strikes me is just not a good approach, is that if we're including options that educators are not thrilled with, we're missing the point. And so I think that's really important, that of all the various options, that this group of educators that are involved in the process, there might be some of these that just, they're not thrilled with. They should be taken off the table. And it has to do with modern education. When these buildings were built, education was a very different approach. I mean, when I was a kid and I went to school, you had a teacher, you had a classroom, you sat at a desk, there was a lecture, you read stuff, and you filled out worksheets, and that's it. These days, it's like really, really different in terms of, group activities, projects, and all that sort of stuff. And you need a different configuration. You may or may not be able to get that configuration with some of these options. So that's like the overarching thought that I have, that I just wanted to mention. And that you really winnow down the options to the ones that really meet that goal. And then the other thought I just wanted to mention is that there's a lot of concern about the finances, but I've seen in the years that I've lived here, this community has rallied on and raised a tremendous amount of money on a variety of things. And I would think that if it's packaged properly and rolled out properly and has proper support from a broad enough group of constituents, that you'll see this community rally behind whatever it is that's ultimately being brought forth. So that's what I have to say. So thank you.
I have a question. The 27% reimbursement amount is kind of being used as a hook. We're going to get 27% back and was answering questions about that from people about how 27% was going to be used, et cetera. You said something to the effect of, when all is said and done, you know, construction's done, et cetera, that then the state will decide how much they're going to pay?
Well,
So is it 27%
it is
or is it?
27%. It's 27%. So what happens is, you know, we are working based on estimates right now. And the state is going to give us numbers based on estimates. But the actual project cost, they are going to reconcile it down to the total cost of the project. You have also heard about, you know, additional square footage and LFIs. LFIs are not contributable to OFCC funding. So almost all projects do end up coming with some LFIs, and part of that reconciliation process is determining what is OFCC co-funded and what is LFI expenditures. And once they identify the total OFCC funding, the amount is 27% of the total cost of the OFCC funded portion.
So that's a set reimbursement, essentially?
Yes.
20.
And I just want to clarify, the 27% is not a hook. It's a reality for these plans.
Well, for some people it is.
We are not presenting it as a hook. We are presenting it as a fact for some of these plans. For some of these plans, there is no 27%.
So I guess my question was about option C. You know, 512, I'm not really familiar with that many examples of a 512, but a K8 is something that I am familiar with, a lot of examples of a K8. Did we consider a K8 at Mills Lawn? That would put together 9 grades as opposed to 8 grades with the 512. So you'd be probably saving, you have a higher cost project, get a little bit more state match if you went K8. Plus, it would maybe alleviate some people's concerns about 5th graders with the high school. So was that considered?
So yeah, the straight answer is it wasn't. I mean, the only data that we got at Mills Lawn comes from the 2018 levy, and there was an option to put a K-12 at Mills Lawn. There was a very strong signal from the community that that was too much here for congestion. So I don't know how that relates to a K-8. It's only 4 less grades, but
Too much, but there's also not enough at Mills Lawn too, right? Like we could go the other way. So we could need the Mills Lawn sweet spot, wherever that's at.
And I just also want to clarify, I know that we don't have drawings for what these other options could look like, but part of my understanding of what has been discussed in our meetings about, for example, a 512 option, it's not necessarily that all of the students are just in that one building altogether. You divide it out into wings and separate spaces, and those are part of the advantages of those educational spaces, that you have these you know, a core center of the building that's shared, but these wing spaces, so there is a certain level of having, for example, maybe a 5-6 wing, a 7-8 wing, a 9-10 wing, an 11-12 wing. And I'm just throwing that out as an example, but just so people have in their minds that there would be flexibility in the design of those spaces.
Yeah, I want to add to what Louisa said. Some of us have visited a K-12 one campus, and something that I didn't realize until going there is that you can have one kitchen, 2 cafeterias, so that the younger children do not share a meal with a high schooler, for instance. And that was down the road in Eden there. Something that was interesting here in that specific setting too, and that could be applied to any other configuration where we are nervous about mixing grades, is that you can have one entrance going into several wings, like Louisa said. So if that's something that the community is interested in, I think that I would encourage them to go visit some K-12 or any other buildings that have those different configurations. It could maybe assuage some of the nervousness you have on those plans.
Usually it's divided
512s that do exist, and we talk about this all the time when I meet in administrative meetings with my principals. And my elementary principal says the 5th and 6th graders are ready for a really, what we would call and understand as a more middle school environment than an elementary environment.
Still have a few minutes. I did promise everybody we'd get 6 to 8 and kind of stick on schedule, so.
First of all, I'd like to thank the board for their openness to ideas and to community input. Sorry. Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank the board for their openness to community input. I think there's some very strong voices for yes. I think there's some very strong voices for no, and very strong opinions. And I think there's a big chunk of this community that is in the middle trying to figure it out. And I appreciate trying to come up with options that we can have open input about. I would also, push those of us in the community who have not decided on all these things already, to let their voices be heard and to come out to the remaining meetings, because I think that's really where this is going to work or not work. I really torn, because what I think we need to do is we need to get a plan of work. The last couple of years have put our students behind in their learning across the entire world, and it's only going to get, they're only playing catch up now. And the more we sit here and talk about facilities year after year after year, we're not talking about things that really matter. And it's the teachers, it's the classrooms, it's the learning. So let's find something that most of us can agree on. And I get it, it's going to hurt some people. And I would hope our community would find ways to help address that. But we got to move on from this. That's my comment.
So a typical configuration for junior high is 7 through 8, and a typical configuration for middle school is typically 5th through 8. But people do use the name alternatively. It's just, if you kind of go and see what the general trend is that's generally what it is. And one of the things that was provided as an example, and I know this is but was the band program. So the band program starts at 5th in our school district. And so keeping 5th and 6th together was one of those that was one of the motivations. There's a lot of space that the band program requires, and so it opens up options. It opens up options to move the Board of Education offices and to look at our aspirational path. I mean, we've not including, so we have ambitions for our theater and our band programs. We have ambitions for a pre-K. And so looking at these additional options helps us kind of open up the aperture and really look at and have a discussion with the community about that aspirational path. Thank you.
All right, I think we got about 1 more minute left. Anybody, any final parting questions? All right, if not, I don't see anybody rushing the mic, so Dr. Holden, you want to close out?
No, thank you for giving up your time on a relatively nice evening in February.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
The next
We'll have
meeting
this.
is March 14th. Hang tight. 16th. March 16th. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.
We do need to adjourn.
Oh, okay. Well, we can do that. They got a motion to adjourn.
I need to make clear.
Why don't you over here?